Imagine dedicating 11 years of your life to grueling night shifts on a factory floor. You keep a spotless record.
Right, you're a highly skilled, incredibly reliable worker.
Exactly. And then at 3:38 in the morning, your entire career is just destroyed over a $1.95 cookie.
A cookie that, as it turns out, you actually paid for, which is just wild to think about.
It is. It's completely wild. And our mission for this deep dive today is to really analyze this recent, honestly mind-boggling human resources disaster, because it perfectly illustrates the absolute danger of prioritizing like rigid technology and automated processes over a basic, 5-minute human conversation.
Because a simple chat could have solved all of it. We are looking at a perfect storm of modern corporate management here. Organizations obviously require structure and rules to function at scale, but
when you strip away that human context, right?
precisely. When you rely entirely on the cold mechanics of a process, a system that was initially designed to protect a company can just instantly transform into a massive liability.
Yeah, and we are looking at an article detailing exactly how a major corporation fired a deeply loyal employee over a snack. It shows what happens when a company's strict bureaucracy completely blinds them to reality. And it's a scenario that gives you, our listener, the tools to spot these systemic failures in your own professional life.
Which is so important today, given how automated everything is getting.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, let's unpack this. The incident itself centers on Kurt Kромm, who is an 11-year veteran working the night shift at Ford's Kentucky truck plant in Louisville.
And we should note, we are talking about a highly skilled manufacturing role. This isn't an entry-level temp job.
Right. But Ford fired him for allegedly stealing a cookie from an Aramark self-checkout kiosk on the factory floor. And the sole basis for terminating this 11-year veteran was a self-checkout surveillance video.
What's fascinating here is our collective, almost total blind trust in video evidence. I mean, we have this psychological quirk where we treat a video recording as this unimpeachable objective reality.
Like it's an infallible witness or something.
Exactly. In a corporate setting, when a manager pulls up a surveillance clip, it basically immediately shuts down all debate. The base assumption is that machines do not lie.
Right. But there's a catch.
A huge catch. Whether that footage comes from a break room kiosk or algorithmic surveillance software, or even just a coworker's phone, it inherently omits crucial context. I mean, a camera only captures light bouncing off objects in a very highly restricted frame.
Yeah, it doesn't capture intent.
No, it misses whatever happened 10 seconds before the recording started. And it certainly cannot capture the internal physical state of the human beings inside that frame.
It's like looking through a keyhole and thinking you see the entire room.
Yeah.
You see someone grab a cookie, you see them walk away, and you just assume the narrative is complete.
That's a great way to put it, the keyhole effect.
But I do have to push back on this a bit, just to play devil's advocate. If I put myself in the shoes of a factory manager, a theft is a theft, right? Like, we've all heard of the broken windows theory of management.
Yeah.
Isn't it standard practice to enforce even the smallest rules? Because, if you let a $1.95 theft slide, you functionally communicate that the rule doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Which just invites operational chaos down the line.
Well, the logic of enforcing consistency is a cornerstone of classical management theory. It dates all the way back to Taylorism, which essentially sought to make human labor as measurable and predictable as machine labor.
Right, trying to quantify everything.
Exactly. And you do need consistency. If you let one employee steal, disciplining the next one becomes a complete legal nightmare of selective enforcement. However, and this is a big however, that entire managerial framework relies on one critical dependency.
Which is?
Your initial assessment of the situation absolutely must be accurate. Consistency only works if the theft actually occurred.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And determining that requires an actual investigation, not just, a viewing party of a low-resolution kiosk video.
Right, which means you have to look past the keyhole. Because the reality of the situation outside that video frame completely shatters the initial assumption. Here's where it gets really interesting.
It really does.
What was actually happening to Kurt at that exact moment on the factory floor? Well, he is diabetic. And at 3:38 a.m., his blood sugar was dropping rapidly.
He was crashing.
Yeah, he was facing an imminent medical emergency. He urgently needed food to prevent a full-blown diabetic crisis right there on the floor.
And that medical reality shifts the entire legal and ethical framework of the event. I mean, we are no longer talking about operational theft here. We are talking about basic human survival and, frankly, federal law.
Exactly. The source material explicitly points out that under the ADSI, the Americans with Disabilities Act, taking a cookie to prevent a medical emergency would very likely be considered a reasonable accommodation.
Without a doubt.
And HR processes, they exist primarily to shield a company from legal and financial liability. Yet, by moving at lightning speed to punish a perceived theft just to protect a $2 bottom line, this bureaucracy bulldozed straight into a potential federal ADA violation.
The irony is just glaring. And it perfectly exposes the underlying flaw of zero-tolerance policies when they operate without any human oversight. But, the situation is even more absurd when you look at the final piece of missing context.
Oh, the ultimate plot twist. Kurt actually paid for the cookie.
He didn't even steal it.
Right. He had a medical emergency, grabbed what he needed to survive his shift, paid the $1.95 and was fired anyway, simply because the physical sequence of events on the video vaguely resembled a theft to some observer.
It's unbelievable.
It is. How does an HR department, a function literally containing the word human, make a miscalculation of this magnitude?
Well, we really have to analyze the daily mechanics of HR to understand the psychology behind this specific failure. HR professionals operate in an environment where they are constantly, day in and day out, navigating deception.
Because they're always investigating things.
Right. When you spend your days investigating policy violations, safety breaches, or thefts, you build up this sort of psychological callus. You regularly encounter employees who will look you dead in the eye and claim total innocence.
Right up until you show them the proof.
Exactly. Until they are presented with undeniable proof, they deny everything.
But, isn't navigating that deception the exact definition of their job? We don't excuse a surgeon for making a fatal error just because they see sick people all day, We expect professionals to manage the fatigue of their environment.
You are absolutely correct to expect a higher standard, but acknowledging that standard doesn't erase the psychological mechanism at play here, which is deep confirmation bias fueled by institutional volume.
Volume meaning just the sheer number of cases they handle.
Yes. When a system is designed to process high volumes of infractions, it starts relying on heuristics, basically, mental shortcuts. The HR rep sees the kiosk video. The brain instantly categorizes that pattern as theft.
And once that
mental anchor drops, the human brain actively dismisses any new information that contradicts that initial conclusion. So the employee's plea about a medical emergency or a payment is no longer processed as new evidence.
It's just seen as an excuse.
Exactly. It is processed as just another predictable defense mechanism that the HR rep has heard 100 times before.
So the system completely stops seeing individuals and only sees patterns. Kurt isn't an 11-year veteran having a medical crisis. He's just case number 402 denying a kiosk theft.
Which is a catastrophic failure of the role's core duty. Fatigue cannot and should not override the absolute necessity of an objective investigation.
Right. And that brings us to the aftermath, where the bureaucratic machinery really shows its teeth. The truth of the incident was easily verifiable. He had a medical emergency, and he paid the money.
He had the receipts, literally.
Yeah, Kurt provided Ford with a screenshot of his bank account showing a $1.95 transaction at 3:38 a.m., which perfectly matched the time of the incident. You would assume a digital bank record is the silver bullet, right?
You would think so. Case closed. Apologies issued. Please come back to work.
But no. Ford waited 10 days to respond. 10 days of an 11-year employee sitting at home without a paycheck. And their response wasn't an apology. They demanded a notarized statement from his bank verifying the screenshot.
It's just we are witnessing the defense mechanisms of a bureaucracy in real time here. Because a notary does not verify the transaction itself.
Right, really? They don't?
No, a notary merely verifies the identity of the person signing a piece of paper. The demand for a notarized document is just an administrative hurdle. It's designed to test compliance, rather than being a genuine effort to uncover the truth.
So Kurt jumps through the hoop anyway. He goes to the bank, gets the document notarized, hands it over to Ford, and then weeks pass. After an agonizing wait, Ford finally invites him back to his job, issuing him roughly $33,000 in back pay.
Which is a massive payout for a $2 mistake.
It is. And it makes me wonder, why is it so incredibly easy to pull the trigger on firing someone, but it takes an act of Congress to undo it? It's like a corporate trapdoor that drops you instantly the second you step on it.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
But to get back up, you have to pick this massive combination lock in the dark while filling out paperwork,
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, the architecture of that trapdoor tells you everything you need to know about a company's underlying culture.
How so?
Well, a system designed to execute a termination based on a 10-second video, yet requires a weeks-long, multi-step, notarized review process to reinstate someone, is a system that fundamentally values its own process over its people.
The asymmetry there is just staggering.
It is. It reveals an ingrained corporate assumption that the employee is inherently guilty. The machine's output, the video is presumed infallible, and the burden of proof is shifted entirely onto the individual.
So the company protects itself instantly.
Instantly. But it forces the employee to wage an expensive, time-consuming campaign against a faceless bureaucracy just to regain their livelihood.
Think about the internal resources spent on that notarization demand, too. The HR hours, the legal review, the bureaucratic meetings. They likely spent thousands of dollars in corporate time just to verify a $2 charge.
Oh, absolutely.
The math fails spectacularly from a purely cold capitalist perspective.
The math fails because we're looking at the sunk cost fallacy operating at an institutional level.
Okay, unpack that for me.
The bureaucracy could not admit a rapid, cheap mistake without threatening its own perceived legitimacy. To validate that initial decision to fire him, the system had to escalate the burden of proof. It spent tens of thousands of dollars to justify a $1.95 error because admitting the error means admitting the process itself is fundamentally flawed.
Wow. And that escalation, it creates a massive ripple effect. The damage isn't contained to just Kurt or the HR department processing that $33,000 check. This incident infected the entire ecosystem of that factory floor.
Because people notice.
Right. The law might only require companies to make termination decisions in good faith based on supporting evidence. But Ford's sloppy investigation produced a deeply immoral result. And the hidden costs of that result are profound.
This is where we really measure the erosion of the psychological contract between employer and employee. Kurt did not work in a vacuum.
No, 11 years on the floor.
Exactly. He had coworkers who labored alongside him on the night shift for over a decade. They watched a reliable, dedicated colleague get marched out the door over a cookie.
And the source article highlights a really brilliant distinction regarding workforce psychology here. When a genuinely toxic employee is fired, someone who slacks off, causes safety hazards, or creates drama, the rest of the team usually feels a sense of relief.
Oh yeah. It validates the rules and makes the workplace feel just and fair.
But when employees witness a good person targeted and wronged by a blind system, that memory becomes permanent.
It does. And you cannot quantify that level of psychological damage on a quarterly earnings report, but it absolutely destroys retention. I mean, if you are a skilled worker on a grueling night shift and you realize your decade of flawless performance can be erased in seconds by a misunderstanding on a self-checkout camera,
your loyalty just evaporates.
completely. You stop trusting management, you withhold discretionary effort, and you constantly look over your shoulder.
So what does this all mean? Is the $33,000 back paycheck the actual punishment for the company? Or is the invisible, silent loss of trust on that factory floor going to cost them far, far more in the long run?
Oh, the trust. Without a doubt.
Especially considering that skilled, reliable night shift workers are notoriously difficult to replace.
The invisible loss of trust is the true catastrophic cost here. When a workforce defaults to malicious compliance or, quiet quitting because they fear the system, productivity just plummets. This raises an important question for any leader designing operational rules.
Which is?
You have to build friction into the termination process, not just the reinstatement process. You must train your management to start every incident investigation with fresh eyes.
Not just trusting the algorithm.
Right. You cannot just glance at a metric or a video and stamp case closed. You have to investigate the variables outside the frame. Could there be a medical issue? Is there alternative documentation? Have we actually sat down as human beings and listened to this person without prejudice?
And the article actually offers a wildly simple, almost aggressively analog solution to this entire high-tech mess.
Oh, I love this part.
Right. Instead of investing capital in automated surveillance kiosks to police a $2 snack inventory and then paying HR professionals to investigate kiosk footage and ultimately paying out $33,000 in wrongful termination back pay, the company could just offer free cookies for the night shift.
It is a mathematically superior business strategy. I mean, when you factor in the overhead of purchasing and maintaining the surveillance kiosks, the salaried hours spent reviewing footage, the legal risks of ADA violations, and the massive cost of turnover and lost morale.
It's a no-brainer.
Giving away a tray of $2 cookies is the most cost-effective decision management could make. It generates goodwill instead of breeding paranoia.
It actively treats the workforce like human beings. rather than potential thieves waiting to be caught by an algorithm. We started with a $1.95 transaction, and we uncovered a $33,000 corporate embarrassment that shattered workplace culture and, frankly, narrowly avoided a federal lawsuit.
All because management chose to trust a machine's limited view over an 11-year relationship with a dedicated employee.
Prioritizing a rigid process over a simple human conversation.
It serves as a stark reminder that efficiency and bureaucratic processes are meant to be tools. When the tool becomes the master, you alienate the very people required to make your business function.
Think about the systems and rules in your own professional life, the protocols you enforce, or the bureaucracies you have to navigate every day. Are those processes actually designed to uncover the truth, or are they just built to process human beings as quickly as possible without dealing with the messy reality of context?
It's a question every manager needs to ask themselves.
Absolutely. The next time you are presented with your own version of video evidence, whether it is an automated flag, a performance metric, or a snap judgment about a colleague, ask yourself, what vital piece of the human element is sitting just out of frame?